Without much of a greeting, I start cleaning up. Seeing this, my ex-husband James finally speaks up. "You're not even going to cry, huh?" he says, surprised. I guess he expected me to resist and break down when he asked for a divorce, but honestly, I always thought he was full of himself. He wasn't the only one who had fallen out of love. "Well, you're the one who's going to have a harder time after the divorce, not me," James said, trying to sound confident. Instead of crying, I could barely hold back my laughter. "Huh? What do you mean?" James asked, looking confused. "Between a housewife like you, Kate, and a big shot like me, you're going to struggle. I'm planning to remarry soon, while you'll be all alone," he smirked, feeling sure of himself. "In normal situations, maybe you'd be right, but I know about Emma, the woman you're cheating with. She's not exactly great, is she?" "What? How do you know her name?" James looked shocked. "I'm Kate, a 32-year-old housewife. I met my husband James at a social gathering because we were the same age and had a lot in common. We quickly became good friends, and soon after, we got married." James worked in sales at a trading company and made good money. Thanks to him, I lived a comfortable life without any financial struggles, but there was one big problem: our marriage wasn't going well. It had already been 7 years since we got married. In the beginning, we were in love, always spending time together and sharing meals, no matter how busy James was, but that closeness faded away over time. "Take care," I said one evening. "What about dinner?" "I don't need it, I'll eat out. You can go to bed first. I'll be home late," he replied. "All right, got it," I said, feeling the distance between us. When we were newlyweds, James used to say, "Eating with you, Kate, is the best part of my day," but now, he often came home after midnight, long after I was asleep. He left for work in the morning without talking to me, making me feel like he was avoiding me like a moody teenager. Around that time, I noticed James had started acting differently. Did he always use this hair product? I wondered. Suddenly, there was a whole line of skincare products and cologne in the bathroom. James never used to care about his appearance. He didn't even own many casual clothes, just suits. But now, he was spending money on branded outfits. At first, I thought maybe he was just going through a change. He never cared about his looks, so I didn't mind, but something felt off. His behavior became suspicious. He started using his phone in secret and even took it with him to the bathroom and shower. He used to leave it lying around carelessly, and I'd almost sit on it. Why had he changed so much? I began to suspect he was cheating on me. He was coming home late more often, and I had a bad feeling, but without any real proof. I tried to push those thoughts away. Despite the coldness in our marriage, I still wanted to believe in James deep down. The thought of him cheating scared me. So, instead of facing the truth, I tried to work on our relationship, pretending everything was fine. I tried to talk to James more and suggested we go out together, but every time I approached him, he brushed me off. I guess it made sense. After 7 years of marriage, our relationship had become almost fake. Even though I was trying, his coldness left me feeling incredibly lonely. As things went on like this, I started to feel worn out. One night, I couldn't hold back any longer and finally decided to ask him directly. "Hey, you're not cheating, are you?" James just looked at me and stayed silent. "Say something, are you cheating or not?" After a long pause, without a word, he stood up from the couch and walked over to where I was sitting at the table. Then, he bowed his head and said, "I'm sorry, Kate, I want a divorce." I was speechless. I never expected him to say that, but he continued, ignoring my silence. "I've fallen in love with another woman. I want to start a new life with her." How could he say something so selfish, so easily? What about our 7 years together? I had suspected there might be another woman, but I never thought he would say it so bluntly. All my efforts to fix our relationship suddenly felt pointless. Was the man I fell in love with really this heartless? When we first met, I thought he was the most wonderful person in the world. Now, I couldn't even speak. My mind was spinning with thoughts. And then James said something that made me question if I'd heard him right. "The truth is, she's pregnant with my child. I want to be with her for our baby's future." I felt like I was going to collapse. Everything around me seemed to blur. In our 7 years together, we never had a child, even though we weren't using protection. In fact, we had been actively trying to conceive and even went through fertility treatments. Despite everything, we weren't able to have a child. According to the doctors, James had fertility issues, but he always said he really wanted a baby, even though we knew it would be difficult. We kept trying. I always did my best to meet his expectations. Recently, though, our relationship had lost its spark, and we had stopped trying. Now, it seems the fact that he had a child with his mistress was a big reason for him wanting a divorce. I've always wanted a child, and I want my mom to see her grandchild as soon as possible. You understand, don't you, Kate? Please let me go. Let's get a divorce. His mother had been seriously ill and in the hospital for the past 2 years, so I understood why he wanted her to hold a grandchild, but to have a child with another woman, instead of with me? How awful could he be? I wanted a child too. That's why I went through fertility treatments. I thought we were both dealing with the pain of not being able to have kids. Do you realize how selfish you're being? You betrayed me, I yelled at him, angry, but James just looked down and apologized, like he was waiting for me to calm down. It made me even more upset. What kind of woman is she, just because she's having your baby? I'm not ready to accept this divorce. I pressed him to tell me more about her, but he said, I'm sorry, but I want to respect her privacy. How can you be so selfish? I'm your wife. I have a right to know, I demanded, but even as I kept asking, James wouldn't tell me anything about her. All he said was, she's 2 years younger than you, Kate, that's it. She's an employee? What a joke, I thought. He must really care about her. No matter how much I pushed James, he didn't give me any real details. 4 days, we kept discussing the situation, but I refused to agree to the divorce. I didn't want things to go his way so easily. Throughout it all, James kept bowing his head, saying, I beg you, I don't have feelings for you anymore. What's the point in staying married? Even my mother knows about this, and she's okay with it. Hearing that he had already talked to my mother-in-law shook me. We hadn't been as close lately, but I thought we still had a good relationship. Then James dropped one bombshell after another. I've already given her an engagement ring. We're planning to move in together soon. The only thing left is for us to get divorced. I felt dizzy, like I might faint. James was really serious about being with the woman he was cheating with, but I still didn't agree to the divorce. This back and forth between us dragged on for almost a month. Finally, James lost his patience. One day, he got down on his knees and begged. I can't take it anymore. Just accept the divorce already. Our relationship has been broken for a long time. There's no point in keeping this going. Please, just let me go. He was literally on the floor, rubbing his forehead against it, begging me to let him go. After holding out for nearly a month, I started to wonder if it was time to accept the divorce. She's an employee? What a joke, I thought. He must really care about her. No matter how much I pushed for answers, James wouldn't give me any real details. 4 days, we kept talking about it, but I refused to agree to the divorce. I didn't want everything to go exactly as he planned. Meanwhile, James kept pleading with me, bowing his head and saying, I beg you, Kate, I don't love you anymore. What's the point of staying married? Even my mom knows, and she's okay with it. That last part shook me. He had already talked to my mother-in-law about the situation. We hadn't been as close recently, but I still thought we had a good relationship. Then James dropped even more shocking news. I've already given her an engagement ring. We're planning to move in together soon. All that's left is for you to agree to the divorce. I felt lightheaded, like I might pass out. My husband was seriously planning a future with the woman he was having an affair with, but I still didn't agree to divorce him. This back and forth went on for almost a month. Finally, James lost his patience. One day, he dropped to his knees and begged. I can't take this anymore. Just accept the divorce. Our relationship has been broken for a long time. There's no point in dragging this out. Please, just let me go. He was on the floor, head down, pleading with me. After holding out for nearly a month, I started to wonder if maybe it was time to let go. James's face turned pale within a few weeks after I gathered a lot of information about his mistress. First, her name is Emma. She's 27 years old and has been divorced twice. Currently, she's living with her parents. From what I learned, Emma has a bad reputation. She's known for jumping from one man to another. Even though she has a child with her first husband, he has custody, and she's been banned from seeing the child because she's considered a bad influence. On top of that, Emma isn't faithful. She's been seeing other men, even while involved with James. The private investigator I hired even saw her going into a motel with other men. I made sure to have photos taken as proof. When I showed all of this to James, along with the pictures, he collapsed. No way, Emma can't be that kind of woman. She only loved me. We were planning to start a family. James seemed deeply in love with Emma. And it was frustrating to watch. She didn't stand out in terms of looks, but she clearly knew how to charm men. "This is a lie, you're just trying to shake me up. These pictures must be fake," James protested. "Believe it or not, that's up to you," I said, "but your mistress, oh, sorry, your new wife, has been seeing other men. Maybe the child isn't even yours." James's face grew even paler. "No way, not Emma. The private investigator found this information. James, the chances are high that she's using you. Maybe you're just the one with the most money, and that's why she chose you to marry. Even if the child isn't yours, you wanted one so badly, right? Good luck raising it." That was the final blow. I packed my things and left the apartment. A while later, I got an email from James. He wanted to get back together. As I had suspected, the child Emma gave birth to wasn't James's. When he confronted her, she admitted, "I didn't know whose child it was until after it was born, but since they were already married, James was legally responsible for the child. Emma had only used him for his money. As proof, James had even paid her share of the alimony, giving me a total of $80,000. James was furious and confronted Emma, but she just said, "You seemed happy to take care of me." Then one day, she left the child behind and disappeared. James called me, begging for forgiveness. "You were right, I was deceived. I'm so sorry, can we start over?" I was disgusted. "Do you think I'll come back just because you're saying all these nice things? You had an affair, that's a fact. You betrayed me. Accept the reality." I hung up after that. Later, I heard from a mutual friend that James handed the child Emma abandoned over to her parents, telling them to take responsibility, but her parents didn't want the trouble and told him to raise the child. James refused, saying, "I have no obligation to raise a child that's not mine." He even submitted DNA test results to prove the child wasn't his, and revoked his acknowledgement of the child. Emma's parents had no idea the child wasn't James's. After they found her, they took her back home and are now forcing her to raise the child, keeping her under close watch to prevent her from seeing other men freely. Even though James is no longer connected to Emma, he ended up paying me $80,000 in alimony, including the portion that covered Emma. This wiped out his savings. He's been demanding that Emma repay the money he paid for her, but she doesn't care and claims she can't repay what she doesn't have. As a result, James has become a divorced man with no savings. He's struggling to focus at work, making lots of mistakes, and was eventually transferred to a department in a rural area with no chances of promotion. Now, he lives a lonely and isolated life. Meanwhile, I moved back to my parents' house and started helping with their farming business. A few years later, I met and fell in love with a local fisherman, and we got married. We don't have children, but I'm living a happy life with my husband, who is always kind to me.